Friends, we have arrived to REPHR'S holiday release for 2025, and I'm happy to present Yossegi, a limited edition brush that's more than a tool. It is a piece of Japanese artistry. Wait until you see this brush in action. As well as the evolution of their Shodo series, the next chapter in REPHR'S brush innovation. We saw a little bit of the Shodo agenda when REPHR released their Shodo eye brushes last year that are phenomenal. I still use those brushes, and if you want to check out a video reviewing them, seeing them in action, I'll make sure to create a REPHR playlist so you can peruse, and that link will be down below in the description box. But if it's your first time here, hi, I'm Alicia. I love to film brush reviews, and with REPHR is no different. And just as a disclaimer, REPHR was kind enough to send these brushes in PR. Was not obligated to film a video, but I had to show you the goods in action before these brushes go live for purchase on Monday. My affiliate link will be down below, and I thank you in advance for the consideration. Not pressuring you to buy, it's just there maybe for you to peruse and window shop a little bit. But we'll definitely get into the brush close-ups and product details, as well as extensive demos so you can see these brushes in action, and hopefully my demonstrations will help you decide whether you want to buy or leave it on the shelf. Nevertheless, we're going to get into it. It's going to be fun at brush adventures. Presenting the Yossegi brush. My goodness, how it comes in this beautifully crafted cedar wood box, and the aroma is incredible. You smell it immediately. It just has a beautifully earthy element to it that has a cleansing, grounding quality about it. In addition to the cedar box, as you can see, traditional Japanese packaging is present, wrapped in washi paper. The natural aroma actually subtly perfumes the brush each time it's stored, and it makes for a beautiful sensory experience from the very beginning. As for the handle, because I'm sure you have questions, 4 pieces of solid walnut and maple wood are precision cut and fused together using a centuries-old marquetry technique called Yosegi Zaiku. It's a celebrated woodworking method in Japan where geometric patterns are created from contrasting natural woods. And REPHR is actually one of the first brands out there to apply this to a makeup brush. There might be others, but in terms of a mainstream brand presenting this wood making technique, not too bad. Because the wood is natural and hand fused, no 2 handles are identical. Each cross section reveals a different mosaic, making every brush completely one of a kind. To complete the design, artisans apply intricate Maki-e detailing. You saw the smaller symbols on the lighter part of the wood wedge, and they couldn't stamp it because the symbols were so intricate and fine. They had to rely on the Maki-e technique to make it happen. Maki-e detailing is a traditional Japanese technique that uses lacquer and metallic powders, often gold, to decorate fine objects. This process can't be printed or hot stamped. Every letter and symbol must be applied by hand with surgical precision. And I'm sure you have brushes in your collection like myself with handles using the Maki-e technique with just the beautiful designs that they were able to achieve, such as last year's holiday brush. They used the Maki-e technique to create the autumn foliage motif on this handle. We love. And we have the 24 karat gold plated brass ferrule, but it's not just decorative. The ferrule is pressed into a triangular form known as sankaku, giving the brush its unique dimension. You saw how it's a triangle, and it gives the brush such a unique shape where the surface of it actually looks like a triangle. Sign me up. High-grade Psycho goat hair fibers inside have been triple pressed by artisans, forming a tapered, slightly pointed dome that's incredibly versatile. Soft enough for powder, also structured enough for blush or bronzer. I think REPHR is clever in releasing both the Yossegi brushes and the Shodo ones to represent the old world in traditional Japanese brush making, but also modern innovation, as you'll see in the Shodo series. Their Shodo series is a platform inspired by the philosophy of Japanese calligraphy. The newest brush, as you see here, Shodo 05, is crafted using over 10,000 alternating fibers of different lengths, creating micro layers at the tip. This design diffuses pigment beautifully, letting you build color gradually with air brush precision. It's a new kind of softness, engineered, not just handcrafted, and REPHR plans to expand this technique across their collection based on community feedback. I was thrilled to learn about this update because I absolutely adore their Shodo eye brushes. When I use these for the first time, and you can see how they look a little bit uneven on the edge, and that's by design because it just allows for the most beautiful diffuse finish on the eyes when using shadow, and there's just a swiftness and airbrush feel on the application when the brush works on the skin. And I was thrilled to learn that REPHR developed a face brush with the same Japanese calligraphy brush making techniques. And I can't wait to see more. I'm going to put in my feedback right away. So those are the main details. My apologies for not having prices at the moment at the time of filming this video, but REPHR strives to price their brushes fairly. The Yossegi brush will definitely be more expensive because, again, about the wood making technique, the Maki-e, the triangular ferrule is 24 karat plated brass. So expect something above 100. Maybe 1 to 2. The Shodo brushes, I suspect, will be reasonably priced. If you love the Shodo eye brushes, because I'm filming this after I filmed the demo, you'll see the Shodo 5 in action in a way that, I don't know, maybe just we're not expecting. I was not expecting. And that's how I decided to structure the video. I wanted to start with the demo so I had a better handle, and also wanted to take you along for the ride, because sometimes when using a new brush, I like to film myself in the moment to grasp the nuances of trying a new tool for the first time, and for you to actually see that application in action. And the last year's holiday brush I showed, I believe, was called the Koyo brush. I'll have another comparison towards the end. If you want to hop over to it right away, though, you can scrub the timeline here, click the chapter, and head over right away. But now that we have the brush details out the way, and again, a huge thank you to REPHR for sending these tools my way. It's just a wonderful opportunity, and I am always humbled and grateful for it. Let's get into these demos so you can see Yossegi and the Shodo brushes in action, and I'll be back afterwards with my concluding thoughts. See you in the demo. Although I realize that professional B-roll running in the background while I speak about the different demos I wanted to present appears more professional, but I also love bringing you along to my brush application adventures in real time, presenting the nuances that are probably hard to pick up when doing voiceovers. So hopefully you don't mind this format, and let's get to it. You can see I am barefaced, as I would like to take our Shodo number 5 through as many applications and mediums as possible. So let's prep the face. It'll be a good idea, Alicia, if you had the stuff. Okay, so much makeup. So much makeup. Prepping with Prada Beauty's Augmented Skin Cream. This is a deluxe sample that I have been using for quite some time, and I'm running low, so I am savoring what I have left. Now, what foundation should we apply? I'm bouncing between several because I want to take advantage of Shodo's 05 uneven taper here. I think of it as like a stippling brush, but a unique one because of the slant. And I'm thinking about picking up my Christian Dior foundation from the stick and applying it straight to skin. I'm also thinking about mixing Givenchy and Prada Reveal together because it's quite liquidy, and I think the Shodo 05 will move the foundation well across the skin. One of two things: I can prep it back of hand first and then take it with the brush, or I could take it straight from the stick. Let's try both. I thought the brush, yes, as I suspected, would pick up the cream quite nicely, and now I can whip it onto the skin. So this was my assumption and why I wanted to go this route first, because I'm not particularly fond of this foundation. You're like, well, why'd you buy it? It was hyped at the time. I wanted to try it for myself. A little tricky to grab a sample from a stick, although I could have asked that they scrape off a little bit from the sample, but I know that's not protocol. But I discovered while playing with it some more and trying to figure out the best way I can use this foundation for my skin is to not overdo it. And I think applying it in this way allows me to control the coverage levels and still have a handle on the texture. But the Shodo brush is incredibly soft. It doesn't feel spiky. There's nice flexibility, but I feel the foundation on my skin where it doesn't feel like it's just floating off and nothing's happening. And I think you can see a substantial change in evening of tone, blurring of the blemishes, and this is fantastic. And I think this foundation just has to be applied in this fashion, but I like how my skin looks. It is a soft matte finish, right? So I would say this foundation brush could be okay with liquid, but because it's not super dense, I would again prep even your liquid cocktail and not pump foundation directly on the brush. It will just absorb all that foundation, and I don't think it'll be an elegant application at all. So let's try the second option, and that's prepping foundation back of skin, using the Shodo brush to pick that up and then going in on the face. Oh, I like that as well. That's fantastic. This Shodo brush is quickly proving to be just hugely versatile. I already knew I wanted to use it for foundation application, but discovering how well it can apply creams, because again, I like the stippled nature of the brush, and the fact that REPHR insisted on creating a face Shodo brush is just fantastic. I am completely and utterly in love with the Shodo eye brushes, and I just knew it was going to be a great bridge, because the way those Shodo brushes apply my eyeshadow, okay, is fantastic. So you see how I'm bringing it over the nose, but look at that finish. That ain't bad. Coverage is there, brush is soft, flexible enough to get the product moving around, but not so flimsy that you don't actually see product on the skin. And I like to work with what's left over so I can address areas of the face that need a little more coverage. Oh, now we need like Shodo number 4. REPHR, something a little smaller. Ooh, for concealer. That'll be fantastic. That wispy feel under the lash line. I technically could use, well, actually, the Nikki LaRose and BK Beauty collab brush that released, I think, last year has a similar shape to the Shodo design. And I could go with that brush, but I would love to see this smaller. Could still be with the slant, but maybe a little bigger, well, a lot bigger than their eyeshadow brush, like bigger and wider, but for concealing. Ooh, that would be nice. But just for demonstration's sake, because why not, I'll apply my Gucci concealer. This is in shade 38N, and the Dior Forever Skin stick was in 3.5N. if you wanted to know. I'm just taking the tip of the brush, and I know this might not be ideal if you want heavier, or I would say medium to heavy coverage under the eyes, because it won't be ideal for laying down that much product. But I think, listen, that ain't bad. The concealer looks even. I got it to blend, so we're doing good. Now I'm just looking in close, because even with the method I demonstrated, you could go willy-nilly with the Skin Perfect. I'm already seeing, because this brush picked up quite a bit of product, and I'm wiping off the excess so I can go in and refine the application. You saw initially I went in with a paint down style, but you most certainly could go in with a circular fashion, and the brush moves well still with that application. And I'm just getting between the brows, because this is the area that tends to appear textured when too much product is applied there. And I'm getting around the jawline and just making sure the foundation is worked well into the skin. And you might deal with some flyaway bristles, because the brush has to stabilize the more you use it. So those looser bristles will work their way out, and then eventually you won't see as much going forward. Not bad. I like how that looks. We're doing good. Now off to bronzer, cream bronzer, or even powder bronzer. I wanted to reserve powder bronzer application with the Yossegi brush, because I'm dying to see that in action applying a bronzer, but maybe we could get away with both. Let's see. I was thinking the Simihaze Beauty, specifically Skin Suede Melting Bronzer Balm in the shade Oak 03. I'm thinking probably taking from the pan, tapping to lessen, and then dabbing on. I knew. What a flawless application. My goodness, that is just perfect. In terms of the level of intensity, it's just right for me. I don't want a ton of this bronzing balm on my cheeks, especially if I wanted to leave room for a powder bronzer in layering cheek products. This will prevent that application from appearing muddy if I decide to go forward with that step. But that ain't bad. And I would suspect also this would blend out like a stick contour or bronzer stick well, BBB's contour stylist stick, as well as the Izumaya Beauty Contour Stick. Nice. But I'm thinking, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, Fara Homidi. I am dying to see if the Shodo brush can whip Fara Homidi's bronzer into shape. Before that, I'm just applying some gloss on the lips because they are dry and dull looking. The Tom Ford Gloss Luxe in N3 West Coast. Because the Fara Homidi texture is a cream to powder hybrid. It feels moussey creamy in pan, but once you get it on the skin, you gotta move it around. And I think a brush that has enough density, and we'll see, I'll apply on the same side. Just one punch. Oh my gosh. This actually might be a little too much. So I'm tapping off the excess. Yes. Okay. I'm tapping off even more. But as I suspected, okay, if you found that the Fara Homidi bronzer was a little tricky, but if you have Fude like I do, I have a ton of different cheek brushes. But the Shodo brush is able to lay down the bronzer evenly, but move it where it won't appear muddy. Because this is a shade, specifically Roma, on my skin tone, can appear muddy, but that ain't bad. It's teetering on muddy territory because I am applying it on top of a bronzing balm. So let's keep that in mind. But in terms of the coverage and the application, that ain't bad. However, I'll still wipe the brush on the towel, which is what I would highly recommend if you are using one brush with multiple products. You have to ensure the excess product is wiped off the bristles. Otherwise, you'll just get a muddy application because the residue mixed with new product and you moving that around on your skin. Not a great outcome. And I'm just going in to further blend and refine that application. Wow, not bad at all. I like what's happening. You notice I didn't go in with a setting powder. I wouldn't use the Shodo brush for setting, although you could. I suspect that you could, just based off these demonstrations alone. I personally like to use a fluffier, just kind of more comprehensive brush for loose powder application, or actually something smaller just to hit the under eye triangular area here. I could use a Shodo brush, and if you have it and want to insist on using it with powder, by all means. But up next, definitely want to see a cream liquid blush in action, and oh, there's so many I want to use, but we gotta do it. Dior's Forever Blush Soft Filter in Peony 02. I have 08 Orchid, no, excuse me, 08. Is it 08 or Oud? What number is Orchid? I forgot. I have Orchid and I have Oud as well. But because I can't find them at the moment, I'll just apply Peony on directly. And you could prep this on back of hand as well. But I want to see what Shodo is doing with direct to cheek application from the doe foot applicator. Not bad. Although I think I would like to prep the product first, but actually you spend a little time blending it out. That's not too bad. All right, crisis averted. We're doing all right. I think this would be great with VBB's color wash. Do I have the color wash on standby? Oh boy. This is going to be quite the final look that we're building here. Am I going to be courageous? Well, I'm already doing it. Taking the roller ball directly to cheek, and now just using the Shodo to float that color. You got to be careful because it's liquid. It travels quickly, and you want to place it where it should stay and not have it travel too low because you don't want that blush beard. You know what I'm saying? And why not? Let's tap it over. Ooh. My goodness. That's not too bad. I like what's happening. I enjoy what we've been seeing with the various products, textures, mediums we've applied so far. Like you're doing this with me, of course. Nice. Wow. Listen, the Shodo definitely reminds me of Sonia's beloved sheer buffer. That brush is still phenomenal, as well as the mini sheer buffer. I only bring those up because if you love those, you're gonna love this one. It's a similar experience, a similar feel. It's fantastic. I think we're done with this side because, well, I could let's push the envelope, shall we? I could try to blend out the newly released Glow Maximizer Dior. I always mess this up. Abracadadior. Say that 5 times fast. From their Holiday Spectacular. But this might be the brush that is a little too large. However, I'm using the very tips of the brush, or tip I should say, tips of the bristles to do that. You just have to be very careful in regards to the placement here. But I just wanted to show if you wanted to stretch this brush's capacity, right, and how many types of products it can apply, you could technically apply highlighter, but you just have to be careful with how much you place on there. I might have been okay with 1 dot. I think 2 dots of the Abracadadior was a little too much, but that ain't bad. Okay, so we saw some highlighter. Whoa, that's shiny. We saw some liquid highlighter in action. But we have to now, it is time to see this beautifully constructed Yossegi brush in action. You have no idea how hard of a time it was to figure out what I wanted to see this apply. But I have to bring out my beloved YSL bronzer. I have so many favorite bronzers that I could have used with this brush. You know, I have an entire bronzer video going over my favorites, okay? Swatching all of them. But I think seeing the Yossegi apply YSL's bronzer will be just fine. So we have a light pickup. I double tapped and taking that right here. Oh, what I instantly feel. I feel silkiness from the Psycho goat hair, high grade by the way, but I also feel a nice strength to the brush. It's not flimsy and dense enough where that feedback is present, where you feel the bronzer go into the hollows of the cheeks, and that definitely establishes confidence for the user to know that it's going to be okay. After you stop blending, check it out, go in with a little more, whatever you need. Ooh boy. And what's special about this brush and what I described at the beginning of the video is this triangular ferrule. It provides a literal triangular surface on the brush. Something I do not have in my collection because it's either oval, round, or just maybe, yeah, one of those shapes. But triangular, wow, okay. Fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful. And like the Shodo brush, you're gonna experience a little bit of bristle fallout. We gotta get those loosey-gooseys out, but that happens when you use the brush. Okay. Now, what blush should we apply? I have, of course, my Burberry, the new Dior Backstage from the holiday collection, the YSL blushes, also the Hung Bang Go. This, I think, would do fantastically well with the YSL. In fact, I am tempted to see this in action with Chili Crush, but those pigments are intense and I don't want to wash this brush just yet because I just washed it for the extra fluff effect, for it to blossom. So I think I'm going to play it a little safer and go in with, I know, you're like, really? Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll go in with Earthy Rose and then we'll see what we go from there. Nice pickup on the surface. Oh, fantastic for the pull down, but also well with circular. Not too bad. I think you could probably see this is a fantastic brush for light blush application. If you don't want too much, but just enough, this is the right density for pickup and just enough lay down. But I gotta go with Suqqu. I've been neglecting Suqqu. Shame on me. And my apologies for not posting their holiday collection because my package got lost. It got withheld and was figuring out, but eventually it'll make its way to me. It hasn't yet, but who knows? This is in the shade 103 Hakanacha from their winter collection last year. Oh, yes. And this is wonderful in terms of just the right amount of blush here. I think you probably were already to tell based off the bronzer application for sure. And just a little bit here on my forehead's edge. Yes, yes, yes. My goodness. That looks good. I know I got 2 different cheeks going on, but I'm happy with the outcome from both. I'm thinking also how fantastic it will be For finishing, I also gotta do these brows because compared to what's happening on the face, they are lacking. I think Yossegi will be fantastic with finishing. Now, unfortunately, I could not find my full-size Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder Compact. I'll be careful in not to pick up any other powder. Just make sure you're down towards the outside edge so the brush has somewhere to go without picking up bronzer or blush. And now, I'll take it around for a ride. You could also use this for loose or pressed powder application, but I think this excels in finishing because you see the flexibility, the movement is fast and not so large where it just kind of like plants powder on in one go. You can work in smaller sections, but still get enough of that finishing. And it also won't pick up or interfere with your cheek products, meaning it won't appear splotchy or uneven once you've done taking that final whip around. That wraps up the demo portion. I'll apply some shadow and I'll be right back. But wait, there's more. I did apply eyeshadow. It is from the Chanel Les Four Ombre Bouton. Sorry, my French is terrible. I applied the copper-ish bronze with this Shodo eye brush, but I hopped back on because I didn't show you number 6 in action. Shame on me. So you could probably tell from how it's constructed, it'll be great for that diffusing effect. And of course, let's go. VBB liners, I think, are the perfect candidate for the Shodo 06 because they're so soft. And I think to have that diffused effect on the lash line is just going to be gorgeous. Not only liner, but 06 will be great for eyeshadow application across the lash line. I'll do both for sure. Let's start with the VBB liner. And if you're unfamiliar with this texture, it is quite soft. Softer than Pat McGrath Labs Permagel liner, softer than Prada liners. I love that one in wood, but I want to take advantage of VBB's softer texture because I think that's going to be a great setup to see Shodo 06 in action. Now, if you're not a particular fan of this technique where you rather use or apply a gel liner, 06 might be a little too wispy for that. You might have to reach for a stiffer shadow liner brush where it's going to lay down product more evenly on the skin. So you see Coco's on there. That was Coco, by the way. And I'm using 06 to whip it across. But see how it's moving the liner in a way that it will appear diffuse? And I'm actually going upward a touch so it can have that hazy effect on the lash line. And I'm taking the tip and kind of forming a little bit of a wing effect. But you could also try rubbing the brush on the pencil's tip and then going in. That would allow for better control of product. So if you don't want to go in with the pencil again as to not to create a heavy effect on your lash line, you could do that. See that? I love this little brush. And the reason why I knew to do that is because yes, there was a prototype floating around that I tried and it was similarly designed to this. So I kind of knew. And how I've been predominantly applying my liner in this way. Now we went in with the dark brown on one side, so I thought we could go in with a black shadow, and this is from the Miss Dior quad, specifically 931 Bold Black. And a great way to apply black shadow along your lash line. Shodo 06 is ultra wispy and soft, where it will naturally apply the shadow in a much softer fashion than a stiffer shadow liner brush would. Now, I still like to stamp on so I have a nice outline to work with, and from there can build from that application because I can see what's there and what I can do going forward. But again, the construction just lends a beautiful diffused effect across the lash line where it doesn't appear harsh, but rather soft. I actually have been liking that soft gradient effect from lash line to lid, where it doesn't look, well, in this way I am creating a more distinct line effect. But if I take the brush on its side and gently whip it upwards, I think it will soften that edge and you'll have a nice distinction here on the lash line that creates a little bit of contrast and dimension, but doesn't look so precise. But we like precise, right? If you like going in with the wing liner and having a sharper wing here on the edge. But I think Shodo 06 will be wonderful if you struggle with shadow liner application and you find that it doesn't appear quite right. Shodo 06 I think is going to be a great bridge for you. And actually holding the brush on its side and running it over my shadow to soften that application further. So now you can see the edge is more blurred and it again has that lovely haze effect that I adore on my lash line. And I'm taking it here on the lower lash line simply because I do enjoy that bracket of gentle smoke where it doesn't look too contrasting around the eyes, but if you want a little more definition, and there you go. But we won't stop there. No, no, no. We can apply some inner corner highlight because I think the brush, although small, can pick up enough shadow to place on the inner corner. And in a precise fashion where you can apply it on the inner corner and then here on the lower inner part of the lash line. And we'll repeat that on this side. And just one more. We're on a roll. If you want to apply a little sparkly arcly on the lid, but pinpoint that application, meaning right on the center, the socket area. So that applies to create a little more dimension there. And I'm thinking using this brush on and with Danessa's Color Fix sticks, picking up one of those multi-chrome flaky foils from Freedom Lightwork 7, right? But the smaller brush is going to keep it under control and just place that effect where you want it to go. All right, I promise this time. Now for some lashes and my final roundup thoughts. Here are the close-ups from our demo using REPHR'S new holiday Yossegi brush and the newly added Shodo brushes 05 and 06. Wrap-up thoughts, my oh my. Of course, I suspected fantastic outcomes from using these tools as I have been a long-time user of REPHR and have worked with them for the last few years. I think what they produce is solid across the board. But what's exciting is how they're pushing the boundaries in their designs, in trying different brush making techniques, as we see from Shodo integrating Japanese calligraphy brush making into producing makeup tools, and seeing the Yossegi brush in applying this wood making technique, and this ferrule, which is unique as well, how it's triangular. And of course, I went over all those details in the beginning of the video. This is a limited edition brush. If you like to collect brushes, unique ones, if you collect the REPHR holiday brushes every year, maybe you don't use them, you just like to have them, this one is hard to bypass. The fact that it's in that cedar wood box, the aroma, every time you use it, you just have to smell it. It's there, right? It's a pleasure to use. And even if you buy it to use it just for finishing, or maybe just use it to apply bronzer, perhaps one step in your makeup routine, it's a fantastic experience. I think you saw from the demo the movement, the feel, the silkiness. This is a higher grade Psycho goat bristle that REPHR used specifically for this holiday limited release, and you will feel it immediately once it comes in contact with your skin, for sure. And the Shodo brush, this is one heck of a workhorse brush. The different makeup products you saw me apply with Shodo 05 was immense. Foundation, concealer, cream bronzer, powder bronzer, cream liquid blush. We didn't do powder blush, but I actually have my Chanel on standby. This is a limited palette, the Les Feux Rouge You et You. Face and eyes and face, because this texture was a little stiffer in pan. It was baked, I think, but the Shodo brush, especially when, you see what I mean? When you run it forward and back, you get really nice product pickup, because if you were frustrated with this specific texture, it is stiffer in pan, and as an example, not great with the softer brush like the Yossegi. And this applies to other baked textures you might have in your blush collection, which are harder in pan. I would use the Shodo 05, or I would use the classic REPHR'S 05, the face brush. That has nice density, but will pick up tougher to grab textures from pan, such as what you see here from the Chanel palette. But the Shodo 5, ooh, it's fun to use with these finicky textures, because as you see, you just run it across back and forth, and you're gonna get better coverage just by pouncing the brush on. Okay, and I would use the Yossegi with softer powder textures, as you saw with the Suqqu, with the Burberry. Although they are pressed, they're still soft and pick up. So you'll have success with those textures, those types of textures with this Yossegi brush. Now, if you have last year's brush, they're similar in that they're both slanted. So here's a profile side-by-side view, but you see how much density is present in the base because the ferrules are completely different. This is a classic, well actually this is unique as well. You see how last year's holiday brush is just pinched on the back. That gives it this nice slope, but this year's holiday brush is pinched on 3 sides. So you have a more pronounced triangular shape, and what I described before, something with a ferrule of this crimp, you're gonna have a more traditional oval shape. Great. This is a fantastic brush, my goodness, for powder application, bronzer, blush. If you want to get a little bit of highlight, just apply it from and with the tip of the brush. Loose powder application, finishing, right? From a practical standpoint, yes, I can make the argument that you don't need this brush for makeup application if those tasks are well covered from last year's brush. However, if you like to collect these types of brushes, that's up to you. I love last year's design because I am an autumn thought. So the Maki-e design on last year's brush is just stunning. But this year's woodwork is just phenomenal because they're relying on the wood itself to be the brush handle's beautiful aesthetic instead of using the Maki-e paint design. But you have the Maki-e here on the symbol. So the design is there. It's really up to you what you favor and what speaks to you more. But again, from a more practical standpoint, all the products you saw me demonstrate in this video, particularly the powder ones, are beautifully applied with this brush. But if, my goodness, the 24 karat plated ferrule, the maple and the walnut wood, if I will recommend just one, you gotta try the Shodo brush, the 05. It's fantastic. I was having a ball and trying all sorts of different makeup products with the Shodo 05 because it is truly remarkable how this brush's construction allows for just impeccable blending from creams and, well, I was gonna say liquid foundation. I'll get back to you on that. But impressed by how it applied the Dior foundation, the stick creamy foundation. Now usually looks heavy on me. How it applied the bronzer Balm, the Fara Homidi bronzer. This is gonna be my go-to brush for that. And a ton of other bake types like the old Tom Ford huge bronzer in the white and gold compact, that hard pressed one. I'm going to use it with this brush. Can't wait to experiment more, but back to my original point. If you want to make a practical purchase, meaning if you already had a purchase in mind from REPHR for their holiday releases, but want to stay in budget, you don't need the Yossegi, you're not really into that, and that's cool, the Shodo brush is fantastic. If you already have a few REPHR brushes and you've been impressed so far by their performance, but want to try something new, a unique brush, something that you haven't felt before on the face, perhaps a brush that's going to bridge a gap between you and a fussy product in your collection, Shodo 05. And Shodo 06, the shadow liner experience this brush delivers, I don't think will be like a shadow liner brush you have in your collection, especially if you typically use the stiffer types that don't have much flexibility. Maybe you have like a Sonaji smudger or even a Bobodo smudger that's a little longer. This is unique because it's small. It's not too short, not too long, but again, the Shodo technique just allows for that beautiful diffusing across the lash line, that haze effect that you wanted to achieve with liner or even shadow, but it appeared too harsh, a little too 90s, and 90s is fine. I love that harsh liner look around the eyes, but if you want to soften it a little bit, it's like this is your demure grunge shadow liner brush. If I had to put it like that, if I had to describe it in such a way, it would be like that. Again, a huge thank you to REPHR for sending these gifts and allowing me the opportunity to share them with you, especially if you had them on your radar, if you already received the early access email and you just wanted to see the brush in action before the sale goes live on Monday. Happy to deliver and happy to answer any questions that might merge from watching this video. So make sure you include those down below. And if you made it this far, make sure you like this video because it tells YouTube that I'm fun to watch and will now continue recommending my videos for you to watch and maybe to others, maybe to other food enthusiasts such as yourself. And consider subscribing. You'll never know when I'll hop back on with more brush demos, and you'll know when those videos drop immediately, especially when you click that notification bell. And if you're a returning subscriber, I appreciate your time. Thank you once again for watching, friend. But if it's your first time here, please stay, peruse some more. Maybe I'll see you in this video here. I'll definitely see you down in the comments for this one, and on here again next time.